How dangerous really is Diddy? Now, he's been denied bail twice, we know, by two different judges. This week, his legal team, by the way, submitted a notice of appeal to the U.S. District Court trying to reverse those rulings and get him out. He's being held in federal jail, the Brooklyn Metropolitan Detention Center, and he maintains his innocence.
During his third attempt at getting bail, Diddy's behavior reportedly angered the presiding judge. His attitude was perceived as dismissive and arrogant, prompting a stern response. The judge reminded him of the seriousness of the accusations, which involve significant criminal allegations like trafficking. Despite Diddy's high-profile status, the court expects appropriate decorum. Could Diddy's behavior be worsening his situation?
Welcome back to Court TV Live. We are following new developments in the case of the hip-hop mogul who is facing RICO charges in New York, Sean P. Diddy Combs. Court TV has just confirmed that the family of Tupac Shakur is investigating a potential link between the murder of Tupac and Sean Diddy Combs.
On Thursday, a court notice revealed that Diddy's case was reassigned to Judge Arun Subramanian, who was appointed by President Joe Biden in 2022 and took his position in 2023. Subramanian previously worked at the law firm Sossman Godfrey, specializing in complex civil litigation, and earlier served as a clerk for Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. No reason for the judge reassignment was provided. Combs's case was initially assigned to Judge Andrew Carter, nominated by President Obama in 2011.
I'd say that anybody did any of these things non-consensually. What do you make of that?
I make of that as being a big flaw already in the government's case, which the defense was quick to point out. Even if he was engaging in this alleged conduct, there was no allegation or no statement in that indictment saying that any of these alleged victims or alleged witnesses willingly participated in some of these acts that people find offensive, that sound to be offensive. And that's a very important part of the case. What was the consent? But there are enough charges here where outside of what the alleged victims are going to say about how he was using the resources allegedly from his enterprises, his businesses, his well-known Bad Boy Entertainment, his clothing line resources, his liquor line resources. Allegedly, there were funds used from that resources to engage in this alleged prostitution activity across state lines, and that's why it's a federal case, because it's across straight lines. So there are some problems that the defense has brought up originally, but it seems like, just from reading this 14-page indictment,
Carter denied Combs bail due to concerns over witness tampering and violence, prompting Combs to appeal the decision.
So the Office of the Southern District of New York seems awfully confident about their ability to handle the scope and complexity of the case. But still, why do you think it took them so long for them to go after Combs, considering they allege his crimes have been going on for more than a decade?
My theory is that the government had an easy time putting together this final prosecution because of all the civil actions existing against Sean Combs right now. The case with Cassie, which that video was shown, his former girlfriend, where he was seen assaulting her. It looked like certainly that he was assaulting her on video. I think the government and investigators were able to accumulate all this easy evidence that was just handed to them.
Diddy's third attempt at securing bail was met with strong resistance from the judge, who cited serious concerns over the accusations against him, including witness tampering and potential threats.
Breaking news, and you heard it here first. So, could third time be a charm? Diddy is assembling his legal dream team for a new bail attempt. This will be his third attempt, so Diddy is once again trying to get himself released on bond 2 weeks after he was arrested. And we're told he's building a powerhouse legal team to try and make it a reality. Well, new court documents show the rap mogul's lawyer filed to appeal the most recent order denying him bond. So the appeal will be his third formal attempt to secure his release from behind bars as he awaits trial. Well, sources close to Diddy tell TMZ that the rapper has added 2 more attorneys, Anthony Rico and Alexandra Shapiro, to the legal team working on his highly publicized criminal case. And for those of you wondering, Alexandria is not related to the famed defense attorney Robert Shapiro. And we're told Tony is known as one of the finest trial lawyers in the country. And Alexandria has been called one of the best appellant lawyers practicing today.
His legal team argued that he posed no risk, but the judge remained firm, referencing the severity of the charges and the potential risk of interference with the case.
So it sounds like Diddy is building his own dream team of sorts. So Diddy has been denied bail, and despite the A-lister's attorney promising Diddy would put up a $50 million bail package and have no female visitors outside of his family if the court allowed him to reside in his Miami home pending the trial. However, after hearing arguments from both the prosecution and the defense, U.S. District Judge Andrew Carter turned down Diddy's request for bail and stated, "The government has proven the defendant is a danger." He is, and we all know it. So I just can't wait till they literally throw him in prison forever. Anyway, I'm Pina, and this is awesome news.
In discussing the case, Sherry Shepherd highlighted the complexity of filtering through the numerous allegations. Courts face the challenge of distinguishing credible accusations from possible fabrications. This process is essential before moving forward with any legal actions. Shepherd's insight reveals how media and public perception can blur these lines. Do you think all allegations will be treated? He is facing over 100 lawsuits, a staggering number of claims ranging from physical misconduct to trafficking. These lawsuits have piled up, making it one of the most significant legal challenges in entertainment history. The sheer volume of cases against him could influence both public perception and the severity of any eventual legal repercussions.
And as if things couldn't get any worse for embattled music mogul Sean Diddy Combs, today a prominent lawyer came forward saying he intends to file more than 100 different lawsuits from alleged victims.
Claims we intend to bring will include the following: violent sexual assault or rape, sexual abuse, facilitated sex with a controlled substance, false imprisonment, compelling prostitution, sexual misconduct, dissemination of video recordings, false imprisonment, sexual abuse of minors.
Ariel Mitchell, a lawyer representing one of Diddy's accusers, has strongly hinted that more charges against the rapper are on the way. Mitchell suggested that indictments were inevitable, adding weight to the ongoing investigations. With claims of trafficking and mistreatment spanning years, Mitchell's statements reflect the gravity of what could befall the music mogul.
So let me ask you this, before we even get into anything else, why bring this lawsuit now, and does it have anything to do with the potential federal investigation happening right now?
So we brought our lawsuit because my client was injured by Mr. Combs, and she had been seeking counsel for some time now. She actually sought out counsel who we all know have cases, including Cassie's lawyers and some other lawyers, prior to seeking me out. Just looking for representation for her claims. It just so happened to be that now we're at a place where it's essentially inevitable that Mr. Combs will have some level of indictment and face some criminal charges for all of the cases we now know to be public information.
A federal investigator stated that the probe into Diddy's activities was originally projected to conclude by the end of the year, but recent developments have accelerated the timeline. The nature of the accusations, combined with growing evidence, has hastened the investigation process, possibly pushing Diddy toward a trial sooner than expected.
Are you following the Diddy case at all? When the raids went down, I was like, oh, they're working a large case. I figured it would probably be before the end of the year, but it was a little earlier than I thought.
What was he arrested for?
So the feds will take everything to a grand jury first and be like, we've got all of this. Is it more likely that this person did the things we're saying or not? Grand juries indict almost everyone, and then you can be arrested because you've been charged. They brought him into court and he's got his hands behind his back like he's cuffed, and he goes to sit down and just takes his hands out and puts them on the table. I'm like, you're not even cuffed, man.
The feds don't lose. Is that accurate?
The feds rarely lose. They pick and choose their cases. very carefully.
And then he was denied for bail twice.
It's not a surprise. One of the charges has a no bail presumption. It means the assumption by the court is that you don't get bail. Really, it goes on to the defendant to prove that they deserve bail. And they had all his phones tapped.
Do you think those calls will be released to the public?
Not until this goes to trial.
Do you think it'll be televised like the Johnny Depp and Amber Heard trial?
Sadly, the feds do not allow audio or video recording in court, but there's some great independent media outlets that go to court and live tweet out what's happening.
There was something about like he was on suicide watch.
That's standard, like every defendant. It's not because he said something, did something.
You talk about all this videotape that he had. I think there's a lot of speculation about who's next. How is the feds going to determine, like, who's just at a party?
Does this speed up signal damning evidence?
Versus people who are co-conspirators?
Assuming everyone is an adult, is it a bad look? Yes. Will the government probably want to talk to them and have a conversation about what they know? Yes. Where it goes from there depends on digital evidence. If somebody's under the age of 18, it doesn't really matter what you knew or didn't know or thought or didn't thought. My speculation, and this is my speculation, I imagine he used those videos to great effect to stay out of trouble for so long.
Do you think he is the biggest fish in this case?
I think he's one of them. And in those civil lawsuits, people have started naming other celebrities.
What are some of the names that have been named in the civil
Usher came up quite a lot.
Who, over the weekend, we saw
deleted his whole Twitter.
Entire Twitter.
Yep.
Now, that seems stupid.
Professionals have weighed in on the possible repercussions Diddy could face if convicted. The trafficking and other serious charges he's up against carry the potential for life-altering consequences, including long-term imprisonment.
At this point, we know that Diddy is charged with mainly 3 crimes. We don't know how many counts yet, but we discussed racketeering. So now let's get down to the bottom of sex trafficking. So when it comes to sex trafficking, you have mainly 3 components: the act, the means, and the purpose. The act occurs when the trafficker recruits, harbors, obtains, or solicits a person to engage in commercial sex. And commercial sex has a very general definition. It basically just means when sex is exchanged for some type of value. Now on to element number 2, means. Remember in element 1 when we talked about the act, they actually have to act on it. They actually have to solicit the sexual activity. Element 2, means, is how they go about soliciting it. They do it by force or fraud or coercion. This can include threatening to harm someone physically or psychologically or even their reputation. And the last element is purpose. And purpose is the most straightforward one because the whole purpose of this is to engage in the sexual act with said person or people or group. Those are the elements that make up sex trafficking: the act, the means, the purpose. And an element is like a key ingredient that you have to have in order to achieve a certain outcome.
The implications of a guilty verdict are enormous, as they would set a precedent in celebrity legal battles over human trafficking.
If you don't have at least those 3 things, I don't know what you're baking, but it ain't a cake. So that's what elements are. You have to have at least those 3 ingredients to get to sex trafficking. If you don't have those 3, you don't have sex trafficking. And there's a big misconception that you have to transport or travel this person across state lines, county lines, a border. You can, but you don't have to, because we know the only 3 ingredients you need to get to sex trafficking is what? The act, the means, and the purpose. If you're traveling with them too, fine, but you don't need that. Now let's switch gears a little bit and talk about present day. Now we all know and discussed in the last video that his bail was denied. Now let's talk about why. Diddy's attorney focused on how he's not a flight risk. He's gonna turn over his passports. He's selling his plane. He'll wear an ankle monitor and stay in the home. But the prosecutors focused on obstruction of justice. And that the issue wasn't about him leaving. The issue was about if he's left out of jail, he's gonna continue to obstruct justice. The prosecutors put on evidence showing how he was contacting witnesses, contacting victims. He was bribing them, offering them some type of financial support if they did not cooperate with the government. He was also threatening some victims to change their story. And based on the evidence that the judge heard, he said, you ain't going nowhere. So let's talk about where Diddy is. This is his new house, the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn, New York.
Questions have been raised about whether Diddy will receive a fair trial given his celebrity status and the widespread media coverage. Legal experts argue that the pre-trial publicity could bias jurors, despite efforts to remain impartial. If Diddy is convicted, it will be because the evidence proves his guilt, but if acquitted, it will be due to lack of proof. Do you think his fame will work for or against him in court?
The 3 overwhelming questions that we've been getting on our page is 1, will Diddy go to trial? 2, will he get a fair trial? And 3, will he testify? 1, I don't know. Number 2, will he get a fair trial? Fair trial is kind of a legal misnomer. Don't forget you have, and this is as fair of a trial as you're going to get, but you have the United States of America with all the money, power, and resources going after one person. I don't care if he's got $1 billion, guess who's got more? Uncle Sam. And so to say, is he going to get a fair trial? And then number two, when you're looking at a federal trial, the second reason I say, is the jury. When you're picking a jury in the state system, the jury is primarily picked from a pool of people. Those pool of people are selected based upon your DMV records. So if you have a driver license, anybody who's got a driver's license who over a specific age can serve on the jury. And if you've ever been on the Jersey Turnpike and got one of these double bangers, when you cut somebody off, you'll understand the state level jury is the wild, wild west. Now, when you go with the federal system, that jury pool is selected from your voter registration. And people will understand, and that's why everyone should go vote, is these individuals tend to be more civic-minded, more conservative, and more willing to do things to help the government. That's the thought. And if you don't believe me, ask why the government has a 98% conviction rate.
Diddy also faces potential RICO, Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations, charges, a legal avenue typically used to dismantle organized crime. If applied, the government could argue that Diddy's alleged illegal activities were part of a larger, organized effort. These charges add another layer of complexity to his defense and raise the stakes significantly. How might this impact his defense moving forward?
And then finally, the thing that scares me the most when dealing with a federal trial, and this is with any trial, you're not allowed to get into the prior bad act that somebody has committed. You're not allowed to get into bad stuff they've done in the past, usually. Why can't you get into this stuff? Because we don't want a jury making a decision based upon things you have done in your past. If you are on trial for burglary, breaking into somebody's house, and you smoke some weed back in the 7th, 8th, 9th grade, you don't want the jury to hear about that because you don't want the jury to say, if he'll lie, he'll cheat. If he'll cheat, he'll steal. If he'll steal, he'll kill. So you don't want this prior information in. This changes, however, when you're talking about RICO. Because when talking about RICO, the government is allowed to get in unrelated, seemingly unrelated crimes to prove, I don't care what they say, you're a bad person, the head of a criminal organization. That, look, maybe the arson has nothing to do with the sex trafficking, has nothing to do with the bribery, has nothing to do with the witness intimidation, but under the umbrella of RICO, we can bring all that in to show you're a bad person. That's what makes federal trials so difficult, because we can bring in all of the other bad acts that Combs did. And then finally, will he testify? I've gotten a lot of messages saying he's already made the decision to testify.
Legal experts discuss allegations suggesting that the parties lasted for days, involving commercial workers and orchestrated performances that Diddy himself reportedly directed. Beyond the physical exploitation, the idea of coercion, control, and blackmail have been central to the accusations.
Too many times as criminal defense attorneys, the assumption is always the same, that all of our cases go to trial. I think at last blush, are you looking at the statistics, realistically about 80 or 90% of the cases that we work with actually work on some type of deal, some type of plea. So in a way, we're not even lawyers. We're basically 80s R&B singers. We are Keith Sweat begging our asses off to get the deals that we want to get. And so every now and then there's a very small percentage of cases that end up actually going to trial. And when they go to trial, what I always tell people is, you don't know what's happening until you sit inside of a trial and get all of the evidence and listen to it and listen to the facts. So, like a perfect example is our boy Diddy. We don't know what's going on because all we have heard is what has been put out in the court of public opinion. And you ain't beating the court of public opinion. So if you find yourself sitting on a trial as a juror, there are three possibilities. Possibility one is the easy one. Possibility one is the, as a juror, I believe he did it, and I believe the state proved it. That's the easy one. That's a guilty. Possibility two is the other easy one. I don't think he did it, and they definitely didn't prove it.
Diddy allegedly used recordings of these activities as leverage to keep individuals silent or obedient. How deep does this level of control and manipulation go within the entertainment industry?
And so then we get to number three that happens probably more often than not. In my heart of heart, I believe he did it, but they didn't prove it. That's also a not guilty. And that's what ends up happening. As I tell people, a lot of times, it's the burden is on the state or the federal government to prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt. What does that mean? Is that beyond all doubt? No, that's just that feeling like They didn't do their damn jobs. They didn't do their homework. I know there's something wrong. Something's missing. Like, have you ever been watching one of those movies, one of those Netflix dramas, and you're sitting there watching it, and you're just like, nah, they're trying to make me think this person's the killer. And then there's the plot twist at the end.
As part of his detainment, Diddy is being held in a Brooklyn facility where he has no access to phones or other electronic devices. This isolation is a significant shift from his typically high-powered, connected lifestyle and may affect his ability to strategize with his legal team. What's your opinion on how this case might unfold?
It's this detention center in Brooklyn, and he is in this very special portion of the facility that offers an extra layer of security for high-profile individuals who could be targeted among the general population. And that could mean that he's limited to facilities like the library and the phone, so could make it hard, his lawyers are saying, for him to be able to prepare for trial. And because of all of this, Combs' attorney is actually asking for him to be moved to a New Jersey jail. But a judge said that that's ultimately going to be up to the Bureau of Prisons to decide. I mean, he can continue to appeal this and can appeal the bond, right? But you saw that with Ghislaine Maxwell. She continued to appeal and was not successful. Now, two federal judges saying, you got to stay behind bars.
That's it for today's video. Stay tuned until next time.